What's up, guys? This is Poseidon. A lot of you requested to make a video about great flow versus bad flow. So here it is. Let's talk about what makes flow trade good trade, what makes bad flow trade bad trade. Now, not all flow plays work out, right? Even if it looks absolutely perfect. That is the nature of the market. No one is right all of the time. But I'm going to do my best to explain what I look for in a great flow trade versus a bad one, right? So we're going to use this filter that I have just because this provides a lot of information with pretty big premium. So we're going to use my big hitter filter, and I will actually explain to you guys what I use in filters. So bid, mid, ask, no side, everything is on. Calls and puts are on, stocks, ETFs, and ADR. So nothing's changed here. Everything is on here. For premium, I like 200,000 and above, 0 to 45 days until expiration, because I don't really care right now for these ones, for 2026 expiration, 2025. That's just a little too far out for me to care. If someone's putting $1 million with in a call or a put that expires in 3 days, well, someone either really knows something or they just have extreme confidence in the trade. So that's obviously what catches my eye. Not something that costs $4,000 a contract, and even though it's a $2 million premium, that thing expires in 2026, right? The more time you put on a contract, the more expensive the contracts get. So we don't want to really care about the longer expirations, right? So everything else is pretty normal. Sweeps, cross, floor, normal. China volatility, dividend on, fine. Volume over OI is obviously what I looking for. What I look for, I always want the volume to be greater than the open interest. Out the money only, because I want to see, that stock make that big move, right? Because in the money, it's already, that strike is still right there, right? So it's not going to be that interesting. So if a stock like, let's say Apple, right? If Apple's at 180 and someone buys a 200 call with, 5 days left in expiration for 3 million, that Apple doesn't obviously move $20 in 5 days, right? It could, who knows? It could, but for the most part, it doesn't. So that will catch my eye, right? And then single leg only. I do not ignore multi-leg trades, which we will go over. But for this filter, I like to just look at the single leg trades. With that being said, what does good flow look like versus what does bad flow look like, right? So if we're looking down at this list, also care about the bid, and we also care about the ask, because STOs and BTOs are just as important, right? They're both very important to this, right? So if we're looking down this list, I'm going to use CCJ as an example, right? So CCJ, what's the implied move for CCJ a week? Probably like $2, maybe three max, right? So what we do, look, and what we can see is that someone bought a 42 call that expires on 9/29. The underlying right now is at $39. So it's about a $2.50 move, 6% out the money, around 17 cents. So they bought it at 17 cents for 13,965 contracts for $237,000, right? So this is something that definitely catches my eye, right? 15,000 in volume, 546 in OI, almost 100% at the ask. So I'm going to look at this. I'm going to click the expiration. You see how clean it is, right? There's not really much going on. It's not a green bar, red bar, green bar, red bar. So if this is a full red bar, which I will show you guys, like maybe 2 minutes, that's a bid. So this guy, right, as you can see, bought 15,000 contracts, TCJ 42 calls for 9/29 expiration. So a total of 500,000. This is what I like, right? 0% multi-leg. So there's not, someone's not selling an upside call or whatever, or butterfly, whatever the case may be. This is just a single leg call option, but for an average of 20 cents a premium, right? And so this is mainly all at the ask. So as we're looking throughout the day, the premiums have been changing a bit. It's still around 25 cents. It hit a high of like 34, but for the most part, nothing has really changed, right? So, and the stock really hasn't, I mean, it was dipping a bit, but really hasn't done really much move. Now, as we can see, there's barely any bid action, right? So that means this whale seems like it's still in. He hasn't sold anything, right? Also, there hasn't really been any extra buyers. Yeah, there might be some, bids here, 600 here and there, but with a volume of 25,000, a 600 bid, okay, 600 contracts being sold, it's not that big of a deal, right? Now, if we see, 16,000, right, or 15,000 at the ask, and we see a red bar of 14,000 or 15,000, most likely this whale exited the same day, right? But for this, got a big whale that's bought up this 42 call, and really nothing else has happened throughout the day. So it looks like this is a very clean trade. He's still in it the whole day, and nothing has happened. So on Monday, what I'll do, I will see how the OI, the open interest, carries over to see how many contracts have stuck, right? So, let's say almost 25,000 have stuck in open interest, then, well, someone's got confidence that CCJ will hit 42 and higher before expiration. So this is a very clean trade. And as I explained in the previous video, if you like this flow trade, we'll go to your charts, right? Go on a longer term time frame, the daily chart or whatever, and see, is this a reasonable place to enter this trade? Because you don't know what these whales do. They might not even know what a chart is. These guys might just know something, or they're just putting a lot of money in a contract and they're going to see what happens, right? So this is a clean trade. Now we're going to also look at the bid side, right? Because this is just as important, right? So if we go to, we can use this Tesla because it's actually a great example, right? So a Tesla bid side 257.5 call for 929 expiration, 9,000 in size, 2.34 in million in premium, 33,000 in volume. Now, does this necessarily mean that someone is outright selling this 257.5 call, right? No, it doesn't. Because this call was probably bought, right? Throughout time, right? So we can go to the last 14 days. We see a lot of ask, whatever. What they're doing now, since there's a total volume of 38,000, there has been 2,862 at the, or I'm sorry, 10,500 at the bid, getting rid of this to equate to over 3.38 million, right? So that means there's a huge position that's being sold, right? So they're not expecting Tesla to have that much more upside, right? So you always have to make sure that, the bids are very important too. You don't always want to look at the ask, right? So this is also a very clean trade at the bid, right? But again, this is not saying that they're just outright selling this premium, right? So we can use another example. So ETF flow, this is what I call bad trade. Bad flow. Not bad, but noisy, right? It's very noisy. Because if we look at SPY, right? If we just go to like a regular QQQ or SPY, like this one is pretty clean, right? But here's the thing with ETFs. So much premium goes on, and it's so liquid that $367,000 in a QQQ 348 put, 667 volume is not much at all, right? I would rather like to see maybe like a $2 million, $3 million single order for this strike, right? Because 367,000 with 600 volume is not much for an ETF because it's so liquid. So I would even just consider this noisy. Like, yes, I'll maybe post it, right, on Twitter or whatever, just for you guys to see, but it's not something that really catches my eye, right? I would like to see a couple million, right, in a single order. So if you look at GPN, this is what I call a very clean bid side trade, right? So they're not expecting GPN to get any closer to 130 by expiration, right? So when you see a red bar like this, that means it's STO, right? So they're selling this premium. They're going to sell this premium at 34 cents. Their goal is for this premium to go almost to zero so they can buy it back for cheaper, right? So this is just a single leg order, 8,000 in volume, 534 in open interest, and this is an STO trade, right? So again, STOs, BTOs are very important to understand, right? And then sometimes, in the nature of this, the data and stuff, it might change on you. So you just always got to be careful with this data. It could flip and it could end up being a BTO trade, right? So that's for the most part the clean versus bad. But if we actually go through, what do I really like to see, right? So I'm scanning through flow all day, right? And again, let's say I see a Tesla 245 call. This is all noise. This is all noise. How am I supposed to read this when half of these are bids, half of these are asks, half of these are mids? It's just very messy, right? A lot is going on. If I do post Tesla flow, Apple flow, Nvidia flow, right? For the most part, it's something that really catches my eye, like a single $2 million order for this strike, right? Someone just puts in $2 million in one single order, that will catch my eye. But if it's like 300,000 here, 400,000 there, 300, it's a mess, right? So this is all noisy. So when a lot of people ask, is there Apple flow? Is there Tesla flow? Is there, Nvidia flow? Well, of course there's flow, right? A lot of people are buying calls and puts at the same time, but the question is it notable, right? Is it something that really catches my eye? For the most part, Apple flow is like, it's very, noisy. But again, you never know. Sometimes it will happen. You see a $3 million order at a 165 put for Apple. That obviously catches your eye, right? But for the big caps, it does get very messy. And same with the ETFs, right? But as I'm going through, right? So let's, for example, GLBE, seeing some, nice orders coming in, 50 calls for 419 expiration, right? 35% out the money, right? So let's open this up. This is good. And this is what I call a buzzer beater flow. End of day flow, right? Someone is purchasing these contracts almost at the end of the day, right? So either let's just pretend that they heard something and they noticed that the market is about to close and they buy a 50 call right away. So 2,000 in volume, 525,000 in premium, average of 261 a con. Very clean. You're not seeing a lot of bids, mids, asks. It's just nice order, multiple orders close to the end of the day. So this is something that's notable to me, right? And again, just because it's notable, just because there's 500, 600, 2 million, 3 million in one order doesn't mean that it's always going to be right. You have to make sure you know exactly how much you're risking following the whale, and whatever happens, right? So at the end of the day, you're, you handle your account, you're pressing the buys, you're pressing the sells, right? So you just got to stick with your guts. Whatever happens, happens, right? And obviously with the great thing, excuse me, the great thing about unusual whales, it shows repeated hits, right? It shows, how many times it's been getting hit, kind of makes it easier for you to read. And I do have other filters as well, like 75,000 aggregate, which basically any flow above 75,000 in premium, it pushes it into one order. So it's much easier for me to see. So that definitely helps me kind of organize the flow, right? So again, so if I can see a firm 19 put, right, for 3,000 in size, 108,000 in premium, right? That looks good. So there was some that were bought in the morning. Nothing has really changed throughout the day. And then you also see a big order almost towards the end of the day that someone has more conviction in the trade, right? So that's basically it. It's just a matter of how good does the flow look, right? And, with the filters I have, it makes it easy for me to read. But if you guys are looking, right, it's just making sure that it doesn't look noisy, right? Like this, again, is just very, very noisy, right? Rather than if you go to, that example that we were looking at CCJ, it's just very clean, right? Very easy to read. You're seeing a lot of asks, and throughout the day, there really isn't any sells. Whale is holding. That's it. So that's the video on what is great flow versus bad flow. And again, just because it's great flow doesn't mean it will work out every single time. And who knows, that bad flow might work, right? So that's just the name of the game. You got to know your risk, got to know what you're getting into. Let the market take control. Appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.